What's up, guys? We are back with another review, jumping into the next line of figures coming out from PremiumDNA Toys. So about this time last year, I took a look at Madball's Wave 1, and their next wave, the next line of figures, is about to hit. So we're taking a look at the Barnyard Commandos Wave 1 figures, and if there was a list of toys that I expected were never going to come back and see the light of day, it would definitely include these, because these were obscure to begin with. They're incredibly weird in subject matter, and at the time, they weren't even really action figures. They didn't really move. So it's really weird that these are coming out in general, but of course, I had some of these as a kid. I remember the cartoons, so I'm definitely interested. And we're going to take a look at two, because there's two different versions of these figures. So to start with, we've got one of the standard versions. So this is Major LEGGER MUTTON, and all of these figures have the most ridiculous names. So of course, the box is done up like well, this is a slipcover. The slipcover is done up like a barn and a farm motif. So you got like the front of the barn, you've got a chicken down here. We've got some of like the radioactive ooze that transformed these animals. You got a broken down car, some of the armaments over here, and then the back is just like some food and weapons and all kinds of other junk that you would find around the Barnyard Commandos barn. Now, of course, again, it's a slipcover, so pop this off, and you've got your monstrous figure there in the window in all of his glory. You've got sort of like the barn being blown apart. He's got his nameplate down on the bottom. We've got more of that barn motif. Kind of shows everything being destroyed now on both sides. And then the back of the box gives us like a file card for his rank, his name, and his profile, as well as cross-sell for the rest of the figures in Wave 1. Now, I did say we're taking a look at two, and we're taking a look at two of the same figures. So we're taking a look at the regular version, but we're also taking a look at the Stealth Ops version. So each figure gets a standard version and an exclusive. This is like a Stealth Ops paint scheme, but there's also glow-in-the-dark here, and there's glow-in-the-dark on the box too. So all of the writing on the box, all of the white text and the white outlines, it all glows. But it's a lot more minimalistic compared to the regular. They also don't have their names on the slipcover, so the slipcovers are on the names. They're not on the stealth ones. But then you pop that off, and you've got your figure there, similar to the other ones, similar box style. Figure in the window, nameplate down on the bottom. You've got the Rams logo on one side, the Porks logo on the other, and then the back of this box gives you a cross-sell for all of the figures that come in the Stealth Ops version of Wave 1. So just like the Madballs, they come in really big boxes with, you know, slip covers, so kind of a premium feel. I like the presentation here. I love the fact that the boxes are so different too, and I like the glow-in-the-dark on these boxes. But let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Barnyard Commandos Wave 1 Major LEGGER MUTTON figures. So this is on the left, our standard Wave 1 figure, and on the right is our exclusive Stealth Ops repaint version. So again, these are the same figures, but they're a deco change. And then this guy's got a very, very large glowing missile on his back. To say these are weird figures, though, is kind of an understatement, because they're pretty weird figures. Like, even taken just from the confines of what we've gotten so far from PremiumDNA, you know, the Madballs, those are kind of weird figures too, but these are very, very out there. Because Barnyard Commandos figures back in the, you know, vintage days, they didn't really do anything. They were just sort of figures. But these still have articulation. Now, there are two different types of Barnyard Commandos. We've got the ones that are on all fours like these. There's also figures that actually stand up upright. So they are a little bit different in terms of what is being offered here. And the articulation on these guys is definitely kind of weird. Some of it's useful, some of it's kind of not useful. It just really depends on what you want to do with them. So let's see what these guys can do, see how they move around. I'm just going to do one because obviously they're the exact same figure. So we're going to pull the Stealth Ops aside and we'll talk about our regular figure first. So as far as moving this guy around, articulation is definitely going to be a little bit weird. Like it's more standard than you might think, but how it's used is a little bit different. So we've got, to start with, we've got a head that has some articulation, and when I say that, it's mostly just a swivel. You've got movement in terms of, you know, up and down and then side to side, but it's really just sort of like a bobble. It does have rotation though, but he's supposed to be like this because, you know, he's a ram, so he's supposed to be oriented in this way. So I don't know that it's necessarily a negative that it doesn't do a whole lot. This is what it's supposed to do. The forelegs are fully hinged, so they go all the way out, and if anything, they go probably further than you need. They're ratcheted too, and they have rotation. There's rotation at the knee, and they've got articulation also. So you can get them to go forward about that far, and they go backwards a little bit too. The ankles are pretty cool though, because there's a lot of range and basically just room for the ball peg in here to move. So they can shimmy in and out, you know, sort of like this, side to side, to get just up out of their own way. And there's a pretty good rocker here too. Hinge forward and backward, maybe not the greatest, but there's a decent bit of range there. Of course, again, like I said, I'm not so sure that most of it is really all that useful, especially if it's just going to be standing on the ground like that. The back legs are different though. So they have hinge in and out, and it's not as much because of course they're different. They're chunkier, they're beefier legs. No pun intended when I say beefier. And then they rotate up in there also. Now, the knee is really weird because they're constructed in such a way that, of course, you know, they're supposed to look like an animal that is, you know, on all fours. So this is kind of what it would look like if it has this big monster thigh. But they have knees. So they do hinge and they rotate. And then the ankles on these are the same. They're bigger, so they have a little bit less range, but they do all the same. So they rotate, they go in and out. And then you've got a little bit of rocker on that. It also has an articulated tail, so it will go in and out. It's hinged, and it rotates. So you can get him to stand up like that. And then you've got the big missile on the back, which is hinged also. And this is a separate piece. Like, this is what this guy is for, is to be this big sort of, you know, artillery, this big rocket launcher thing. So this is supposed to be on him. You don't have to have it on him. It does come off, but it is hinged, and it runs through here. It's a big, like, rod that runs through this apparatus. So it does hinge up and down. The rocket is also removable. Now, you can get him to stand upright. And like I said, you know, it's going to look a little weird maybe, though. You've got to sort of get it just right. And it's going to be a balancing act to get him to stand upright, because this guy's not really meant to, but he can. So you can get him to stand upright a little bit more. If you want to have maybe a little bit more of an expressive pose, you can have him do something like this. It's just a matter of finding that sweet spot. And I mean, obviously I just did it on the fly. It's not that difficult, but this is what he's meant to do. He's supposed to stand like this. He's supposed to stand on all fours and be this big, I mean, tank basically. And I think it's pretty cool. It does move a little bit more than I expected, but at the same time, I'm not so sure that it really matters. Like, I'm glad that it has the articulation. I'm glad that it's able to stand up on, you know, its hind legs and just kind of do something a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm probably always just going to have it looking like this. Now, as far as the visuals go, that's probably where more of the interest is going to lie, at least for me, when it comes to these figures, because they are articulated, and honestly, they're more articulated than you would probably expect, especially this one, because of, you know, how it's configured. But the look is so unique, and there is zero doubt in my mind that you're going to have this on your shelf, and it's not just going to stick out like this really sore thumb almost, because, I mean, it's a sheep ram guy. It's just so weird. It definitely is a very different kind of figure, but similar to the Mad Balls figures, if you're familiar with those at all, they are covered in detail, and I can't stress that enough. They are just covered in detail, and not only are they sculpted incredibly well, there's tons of paint on these figures. They literally are painted from head to toe, and then they've got washes and various other colors on top of the base paint. So there's a lot going on here. So as far as our base figure, I'm going to take this off while we do this. So like I said, that does come off. So you can pop that off, and you've got just your ram guy here. So here's the actual figure, the base body. So it's fully painted, even the top, and there's just a little hole there for that. Just a little hole. You've got your little tail sticking out of the back, but everything is fully sculpted and painted. And you've even got your little, like, you know, your diaphragm cut here, which does aid a little bit. I don't know that I actually mentioned that. He's got a diaphragm cut. So you've got that also. But the heads is really where it's all at, because there's a lot of expressive, you know, sort of goofy detail when it comes to their look. It's a very 90s thing, and I really can't stress that enough. This is a very weird product of the 90s, and I think that's quite obvious. But there's a lot of detail in these heads. The horns look fantastic. They've even got a wash up there. The teeth are fully painted. The gums are fully painted. You know, there's just a lot of I don't know, intensity in that expression. He's an angry, ram dude there. So they're just really weird figures, but weird in a good way. Like, weird isn't necessarily bad, right? And then we've got our apparatus. This thing's a little bit harder to put back on than it is to take off because of how the peg is angled. Well, I say that, and I did it just fine this time. Well, never mind then. So we've got our ram rocket, and this thing is pretty crazy. You know, again, it's humongous. The rocket is removable. It's just a hollow tube. But it's removable, so it can look like it's been fired. It's got all these like rivets and pieces all over it. It's got tons of wash all over it, tons of dry brushing. You've even got like a kill count on the side, like a pig nose. It might be kind of hard to make out. They're very silver. But this thing looks great. And again, you don't have to use it. So you can take it off, you know, put it with another figure, put it with a different guy to mix and match and play up that idea. But it's a really cool looking figure. It's really, really weird. This probably isn't going to appeal to everybody, but it's a fantastically sculpted and painted figure. It may be weird as hell, but they did a killer job on the visuals. We do have another figure to talk about, though, because, you know, this is two. We're taking a look at both versions of the Major. So we've had his regular version, and this is the Stealth Ops version. So they get a stealthy paint job. So everything is changed up. It's all blacks and grays, basically. So the base body is now sort of like a gray with like sort of a green hue to it. And then there's black stripes all over him instead of the brown. You've got the gray horns. The face is a different color. The stripes on the face are a different color. The gums are a different color. It's the same head sculpt, same body, same articulation, all that good stuff. And then you've got the same rocket apparatus up here, but the rocket is a different color, and the harness, the whole thing there, is a different color also. Again, you could mix and match that if you want. I thought at first glance that I really liked the first version better, the regular ones, but the more I play with the Stealth Ops versions, the more I'm starting to like this idea. Of course, these also have glow in the dark, so that's its own thing. So what glows on these are the weaponry. So it's basically just the big missile up here that's going to glow, and it glows super vibrant too. So it's going to charge really easily, and then it shines for a decent amount of time too. I've not had really any real issues to make it glow. Not that I should, but you never know. Some stuff doesn't glow as good as others, but I think this looks really cool. And of course, the glow in the dark idea is always something that's going to win me over. But I think the Stealth Ops versions definitely do look pretty cool next to the regular counterparts, and just get them alongside each other here. So they're obviously very much the same thing, but they have very different color palettes. You've got your gray, black, and then your brown, another brown, and then the rockets are very distinct from one another. But again, you can take them, swap them. If you want the glow in the dark on the regular one, you can do that. You can mix and match and kind of build that load out however you want. Now, of course, we have to do some size comparisons because I've said a number of times how big these figures are. So here we go with some other big figures. So we've got a Mad Balls figure here on the left and a Mythic Legions figure here on the right to give you an idea of just how tall this thing is, even when it's on all fours. But, you know, when you do something like this, I think that really shows how much figure you're working with here because it is humongous. A lot of it is the missile, the rocket, but they're beefy, they're chunky, they're really big figures. Now let's move the pumpkin guy aside. Well, that pumpkin guy. So there's a Super 7 Ultimates turtle. And then let's move the other pumpkin guy aside. And here's a Marvel Legends figure. So there's Speedball to give you an idea of what he looks like next to the Major here. And I mean, it's an incredibly big figure. I really can't state that enough. They're very big. They're very bulky. Bulk is really the name of the game. They're big, chunky figures, and they're going to have a lot of shelf presence when it comes to putting them, well, alongside just about anything. Now, as far as accessories goes, these guys come with a few things, and they share the same accessories and the exact same accessories. Like, there's no difference between them. Again, I'm not so sure I really count this as an accessory because it's so integral to the character and the figure itself. It can be removed, but we've already talked about it. So other stuff that's in the box is just a few pieces of, you know, farm paraphernalia, some food. So we get a pumpkin, and this thing actually looks really good. I mean, for a pumpkin, I don't know, why not? there's a lot of paint on this. Like, there's actually a lot of paint. It's a pretty detailed pumpkin. And then you get a watermelon, you get a full watermelon, and you get a half watermelon. And, you know, I suppose if you want to get stupid with it, you can take the rocket out and put the watermelon in there like it's going to rocket it across or something. If you want to try to set a little bit of a different scene, you can do that. I'm probably never going to do it, but there's stuff included in this wave to kind of set the barn farm theme if you want to have something like that on your shelf. And that's what this is for, is to kind of set that scene and to show that there's some little, you know, farmy kind of things, stuff that you'd find on a farm or in a garden to go along with your animal dudes here. So yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with these. You know, again, this is very reminiscent of Mad Balls to me in the sense that these figures are big and chunky and beefy and super, super detailed. I mean, I can't state that enough. The amount of detail in these sculpts and the paint job on these is fantastic. I'm really happy with the overall aesthetic on these. Again, it's a property that I would have never guessed in my entire life was going to make a comeback in any form. These figures didn't even survive my childhood. I never had a lot of them, and I still don't have any. But I'm really happy to see these. It kind of hit a nostalgic chord with me to get these guys and to open them up. And they're pretty fun figures. If you're into weird late 80s, early 90s goofy toys, this might be a way to go about it. But they're also really fun, and one set has glow-in-the-dark, and you really can't go wrong with glow-in-the-dark. If you like big, chunky figures that will tug at the 90s nostalgia, these might be it. So that's going to do it for this look at the PremiumDNA Barnyard Commandos Major Legger Mutton. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.